1828, Robin Swift, orphaned by cholera in Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lovell. There, Robin trains for years in Latin, ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. The tower and its students are the world's center for translation and, more importantly, magic. Silverworking, the art of manifesting the meaning lost in translation using enchanted silver bars, has made the British unparalleled in power, as the arcane craft serves the Empire's quest for colonization. For Robin, Oxford is a utopia dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, but knowledge obeys power, and as the Chinese boy raised in Britain, he realizes serving Babel means betraying his motherland. As his studies progress, Robin finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. When Britain pursues an unjust war with China over silver and opium, Robin must decide, can powerful institutions be changed from within, or does revolution always require violence?
Okay, so I lost one of my SD cards and my room is a mess. My whole apartment is actually a mess, but look how handsome my cat is, Amy. Okay, anyway, so I started Babel by R.F. Kuang, and I'm literally on page 12, and I'm already loving it. She wants to tell a story and interweave things that have bothered her growing up Asian in other countries. I'm already seeing that, like, the main character, we don't even get to learn his name, and he is a Chinese boy, and we only get to learn his English name. And I think that that's really interesting because growing up with Asian friends as well, they have a name that is their name within their language, and then they say, oh yeah, but my name is this in English, or like, my name is too hard for you to say, so you say this. And I think that that's something that's very interesting that she kind of interweaved as like, this is something that they go through that is, I just think that's an interesting little thing that she added. Or the annoying sailor that is being racist against a Chinese man and the way that he's mispronouncing Chinese very strongly and being like, oh, well, you don't understand me, you can't be on this ship, and stuff like that, where I'm like, I got so angry, like my mouth literally like dropped open. And I actually went to school when I was in the Marine Corps to learn Chinese, and I had to be pulled out for medical reasons, but I did go through 8 months of intense Chinese training, and so like seeing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh. Like I was just like, no, please don't. Oh my gosh, it made me so angry. But anyway, I'm only on page 12, and the way it starts out very dark. Okay, so this is apparently like a dark academia historical fantasy fiction set in Oxford in the Victorian area. I keep saying area every time I say era in the 1840s, or is it I think it's the 1840s. I think it's 1840, right? Fantastical version of Oxford in the 1830s. Okay, yeah. I love her little introductory thing where she's like, if you find any other inconsistencies, feel free to remind yourself this is a work of fiction. I was like, yes, ma'am, period. She is so smart. You can tell already from the beginning, like 10 freaking pages, that she is so smart. You know, she's been to school multiple times, and I'm like, yes, sis, go to school, because I have had like 3 semesters of college and I'm already not enjoying it. And anyway, so how she has like masters and all of this, and like she's smart. Okay, anyways, so boy lives in China. Plague takes over his whole family. He's there. He's basically like conscious but unconscious, like so depressed, not eating, like barely able to function. And this Englishman comes in and he brings out this silver little bar that has English on one side and Chinese on the other, puts it on his chest, and he comes back to this realization. He's like, our main character, he's like, oh, you know, and then the Englishman picks him up, takes him to his home, starts feeding him and everything like that. And he's like, okay, so I will give you a home and food and everything else, but you just have to go to school. school and, you know, learn these languages. And I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. And this little silver bar with the Chinese and English on it, once Robin, our main character, reads it, something happens, something like magical happens. And this is where the fantastical and the language come in, because her magic system is based on languages, which I love because I love languages. I've always loved languages since I was a kid. I'm studying Spanish right now, kind of off and on, getting a little lazy with it because I'm not in school right now because of my surgery. But yeah, so basically that is all I know, and I think that I know that it's supposed to tackle colonialism, and basically the main characters want for deeper knowledge and studying at Oxford, but also knowing that they have some bad practices, and that he's basically torn between his homeland and being in Oxford and getting this education eventually, because I think that, I don't know if it's going to be like big war, evil, like Oxford taking over and colonizing and things like that, but I think it's probably going to get to that point based on the synopsis of the story. So, but yeah, it's already really good, and I'm excited to continue. And today is Monday, and I'm hoping that I will read most of the book today, because today I just wanted to, even though my apartment is a mess and I need to be cleaning it, I just kind of want to read today. Like, cleaning can happen. I'm gonna be stressed because it's not clean, but I'll probably clean and read, but make a main focus to read today, because the past couple days I haven't been able to read that much. I tried wheelchair football for the first time, and it hurt my entire body, and I'm still sore from it. So yeah. Anyway, that was fun. I did that on Saturday, so I was like beat on Saturday, and then Sunday I went with my friend for her to go get her tattoo, and it took 10 hours, and I was also very exhausted, just to the point where I was like, I can't do anything other than just like sit here and like exist. So yeah, haven't gotten much reading done lately since finishing Dune. So yeah, this is the last book of my challenge of my reading 6 books, so that I can buy the other 6 Harry Potter books and read the other 6 Harry Potter books. So I'm so excited, and I think that this is going to be good. I don't think it's an extremely long book, like it's like 600 pages, maybe under that, maybe like 500. Okay, so it's like 542. So at least this print anyway, the large hardcover one, and the words aren't super small on there either, in my opinion. So I should be able to read this fairly fast, maybe a couple days, maybe. It depends on how invested I get, because if I get invested, it can be read in a whole day probably. But I'm not that fast of a reader, so maybe I am overshooting and thinking that I have a faster ability to read when I don't. But whatever, we will find out, and yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. Okay, so with my continuation of reading Babel, I have decided that I will be taking notes on each chapter, and I will say that I'm only on page 35, and it's already the end of the day. In the same day that I said, oh, I'm gonna probably read most of the book today, and then I didn't, because my day just kind of got uprooted. But I started writing like normally, my normal handwriting, and I realized, wow, this is not great. So then I started doing the write to speech or write to text, whatever. All right, so I love her explanation of, wow, I look kind of scary. Oh no. I love her explanation of languages, especially on page 25 or 26 and 27. I like her talking about forgetting the native tongue that Robin is experiencing as he's living in England now. And I also like how she was talking about how hard deciphering a language can be, that even though you may understand each and every word individually, you don't understand like the political context behind them, or the jokes that they're trying to make, or you know, the languages are very, very complex, and I think that she's really driving that point home, and that I'm really appreciating that as a previous DLI student, that language is so much more than just words. Like, it's culture, it's people, it's places, it's beautiful, and it's like magical, you know, and I think that she's probably going to interweave that in some point, and that's probably how she feels, because I think she's a what is it, language major? She's a, I'm gonna look up her major, but she has a major in something that has to do with languages. But yeah, I'm really appreciating kind of where she's going with it, the different things that she's adding in, that is like, oh well, you know, he feels like he could look like the son of a white man, or the son of white parents, or the son of Asian parents, and that his family saw that as like good. And I think that these are all like very important things that she's hitting on, experiences that this kid is going through, and I really like that she's kind of like probably validating a lot of kids' feelings out there, of just this change and these things that he's going through, because he's going to have so many changes going from China to England, and going from having an entire family to not having any anymore. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where this goes, and I'm hoping I get to read some tonight, but it is 9:27 and I usually go to bed at 10, so we'll see. And I got some sports stuff to do in the morning, probably gonna do some archery and some air rifle or something tomorrow, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. I didn't do what I wanted to do this morning, because when I went to go on base and do my archery and possibly like strapped in rowing, none of the equipment was there at the gym, so I was like, oh cool, I had to come back. And looking a little rough today, not gonna lie, but that's okay. I have been feeling a little rough emotionally because yesterday's therapy appointment was a little rough, but nevertheless, I am reading Babel right now. I'm on page 81, and I just wanted to read this part about how Robin felt in this moment, and good golly. I just thought it was really sweet. This is not a spoiler, because I'm not going to mention who said it or what they said, but this was, Robin thought, the kindest thing anyone had ever said to say about his being foreign born. Then later on in the paragraph it says, he felt also a thrum of excitement at the thought that perhaps his unbelonging did not doom him to existing forever on the margins, that perhaps instead it made him special. And I thought that was like, that's such like a gratifying thing to read, how Robin is feeling, because he, like chapter 3 and beforehand, and there's just so much racism, and it is very, very upsetting to read about. I'm just like, oh my gosh, can y'all shut up? I'm ready to beat all of y'all up. Like, how could you say that to him? Oh gosh. Anyway, I have a feeling that this book is going to get me emotional, because I am feeling connected to the characters. I am really liking them so far. I'm really loving their excitement about languages and like interpreting or translating books, or like doing the silver working, which seems like it's like an evil plot to me. But yeah, just reading about all of it is pretty exciting. And I am studying Spanish. I'm about to go back to college this fall semester, so I'm excited about that, and I feel like reading this is kind of making me feel a bit more excited about languages again, because it is something I've always been passionate about, but I feel like that passion has kind of subsided for now, and I've been focusing on the warrior games, and I've been focusing on reading and kind of like video games and other things in life, but not focusing on languages, which is what I feel like God has put in my heart as a passion that I need to continue to work on and strive to learn every day. It's just that it makes me so tired every time I sit down to translate anything. I'm like, just take a nap. But yeah, anyway, I'm like already emotional today, so I feel like reading this book is going to have me just a wreck, because I've been seeing that a lot of people do become a wreck reading this book, and I'm already like connected, and I already feel for Robin. I hope eventually we learn his Cantonese name, or his name in Mandarin, whichever, but yeah, I'm really hoping we get to learn that name, because I am really curious about that. But yeah, that's all. Actually, that's not all I like. So this is my notes so far. Don't read them, don't spoil yourself. Unless you've already read the book, then you can read them. But otherwise, they're a mess anyway. But I did want to mention that I feel like you can tell that R.F. Kuang, why is the framing so? You can tell that R.F. Kuang loves books just by her showing Robin's love of books. And I feel like it's only if you feel that way that you're gonna start talking about like down to the point of how books smell. Because I was reading that and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I love that when new books smell or old books smell. And I just love that through Robin's first experience in a bookstore is showing like her love of books through him. I also have a lot of like me being angry towards Professor Laval or towards like other people in the book that are making their racist comments and stuff that is just so, ooh, just making me upset. And let's see, writing down some of my predictions as well, which maybe at the end I'll do like a little spoiler and like, oh well, these were my predictions and this is how I was wrong or this is how I was right, and you know, we'll see. But yeah, I did really appreciate that because Raimi and Robin were just believing that they didn't belong there at all in the school, and then they go to the translation institute, they go to Babel, and then they're like, oh, you know, starting to feel like they fit in because they have people from all over the world there. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. But yeah, okay, time to go now.
All right. Welcome to the cozy part of today's video, which is going to be me reviewing Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I am super excited to talk about. It's going to be a cozy part. I don't have much energy right now. It is almost 10 p.m. So we're just going to relax and we're going to enjoy this review process together. Okay, so Babel by R.F. Kuang. So I want to talk about the author for a second. Just her already going to school twice, going to Cambridge and Oxford, and is now, or at least the time publishing this book, was studying at Yale. Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me. She is so well educated, and you can see that all throughout her book, and I think that that is one of my favorite aspects, is just how well educated she is. So this book tackles colonialism, as you know from the beginning where I talked about it, and colonialism is a hard topic to tackle, and I thought it was going to go one way, but I think she wrote it very beautifully. I think her storytelling was so good. You had characters that you loved, and you had characters that you hated, and you had characters that you loved who made poor decisions, which made you very upset with them, and then you're just at this like crossroads of not knowing what to do. And I will definitely say that the last 20 pages of this book, I was anxious to the point of like shaking. Now, I didn't cry or anything during this book, but there was definitely emotional parts. I think some of it almost felt like it was for shock factor, and maybe that's just me and the way I was reading it, where I felt like, oh, this is thing after thing after thing. I feel like this is shock factor at this point, but I don't think that is a very popular opinion. But I do believe her storytelling was absolutely beautiful and captivating, and so I want to talk about her character work. It was very, very good. I really appreciated how she humbled her characters when they started going their own way and they started doing their thing, you know, and they started kind of going the wrong direction. She would have another character come in and be like, hey, you're being silly. Like, you may be treated this way, but you're not in these factories and you're not dealing with this, and like, you know, kind of just bringing them back down to earth in a sense. And Robin's ignorance of certain things, kind of like his like living in La Vie en Rose or whatever, where he's so focused on being at this university that he kind of forgets about what the rest of the world is like, even within Britain, and what the magic is doing to the rest of the town, what it's doing to the working class, what it's doing to people who are living in poverty, what it's doing all around the world, especially within China, where he's from, and where the other countries where his other friends are from, and just kind of like him going back and forth between being in love with Oxford basically, and then also hating it at the same time once he gets those kind of realizations. And I really liked a lot of his juxtapositions of how he was feeling and just all these internal battles that he was having, the trauma of the things he had to go through or watch people go through, and then me eventually getting angry at him for the choices that he made. Also, it was definitely a choice for R.F. Kuang to never tell us his name. I thought that was really interesting. I really wanted to know what it was. I think that there were a lot of difficult things that were talked about in this book, especially when it came to a lot of the things that people were saying about the way that the main characters looked or where they were from, and how absolutely disrespectful it was. And I mean, it was 1826 in London, in Oxford, in a, you know, high-class prestigious university that she's writing in, and kind of just seeing what they had to go through. I think it could be very hard for a lot of people to read. So if you're sensitive to those sort of things, or it may bring up any sort of traumas for you, I would say go into this book being very wary of that. I'd say that those are the main triggers. Now, of course, there's also death and everything, and talks of wanting to not live anymore by your own hand. You know what I'm talking about. So if you struggle with any thoughts like that, it can be a little triggering. I hate using that word because I feel like it became a mean word, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean. So, now that we've gotten all that out the way, I would say that this book for me is probably a 4.5. I feel like there were some things that took me out of the story for a little while, and then I came back in, and then I was all for it, especially towards the end, where I was so invested in these characters and so invested in their lives and what was happening, what was going to happen, and just how everything was going to play out. She had one thing with her writing that would make me kind of angry, and that's because some repetitive stuff in writing, if I'm noticing it, it's too much, in my opinion, for me, because I feel like sometimes I'm oblivious to some things. I'm not very well read at this point. But she would always do that sentence structure of this, comma, for because Oxford this, or for because this, for the blank the thing. And I was like, can you stop using that? Maybe that was just something she liked. Maybe that she liked that she was taking kind of the older writing structure, because I feel like that is not kind of a writing structure that's used anymore. But for me, just reading it time and time again, it felt like, okay, you can stop using that now. We can. But sometimes she would use it back to back on the same pages, where I'm like, girl, can you not? Can you calm down for a second? Can you? But anyways, I would say that is a minuscule thing, and that's why it's not all the way down to a 4 or 3 or something like that. It's minuscule for me. So 4.5 for sure. I've even debated with 4.75, but because I was taken out of the story a little bit, I can't give it a 5. It was missing a little bit for me for it to be a 5. And I will say, personal preference, I love an adventure, and the story takes place mainly within Oxford. There is a little bit of adventure, but it does take place mainly within her fantastical version of Oxford, which I really did appreciate. I really appreciated the school setting and how you really felt like you were there with them, and not because of the school setting, but because of her impressive language skills. Just talking about all the translations and just linguistics in general made me so excited to go back to school, because for those of you who don't know, I am going to school for Spanish, and eventually plan on going back to school after that for another language. I'm not sure yet, or maybe just for linguistics in general, so that I can become a better language learner. But I was just so captivated. Every time she started talking about languages, she had so many quotable lines when she was talking about languages, and I loved how language was the fantasy of this world, and language is real, obviously, and that translation was a big part of the magic. Was the translation, that things are lost in translation, and things that can never be actually translated into other languages completely and fully. And I was like, wow, she's just so smart. She's incredibly talented and just so well read. I mean, she has quotes from so many different things, and you can just tell that this woman loves books. She writes about the smell of books and the libraries and how they feel and everything like that, and I'm like, only a book lover would talk about books this much and talk about how they smell. And I don't know, there was just something about that I really loved. I mean, really, I loved a lot of this. This is the first book that I actually took notes on, pretty
seriously, and I will be doing a separate video, which is going to be a whole spoiler talk, a whole spoiler review, where I go over those notes. Right now, they are in absolute shambles because I just started rant reviewing when I started getting angry at certain characters. But I must say, I really enjoyed my time with this book. It didn't take me too terribly long to read, maybe like a week or two. But I had other things going on in life. If it would have been up to me, I would have read it in probably like 2 to 4 days, but you know, life gets in the way of things. Oh my gosh, there are just so many, like, I mean, even from the first couple pages, like my initial thoughts is like, I'm captivated, I'm in it, I'm here for this freaking story, and wow, I loved it. I definitely want to know what y'all's favorite characters are. I feel like that's one of my favorite questions. Maybe in my spoiler talk, I'll talk about my favorite characters because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to tell y'all my least favorite characters or, you know, how freaking angry. And you know, I was angry in the sense of like, not angry at the book, but angry because that was the emotion R.F. Kuang wanted me to feel, and I was feeling it. I was feeling it so strongly, and she was so good at evoking that emotion out of me in the sense of like things happening in the story and me being angry for the characters or being angry at the characters for the actions that they did. And for me to be that emotionally invested, I mean, it's definitely above a 4-star book because I don't get very easily emotionally invested in characters that I have not spent a long time with, which is something I've realized for myself. Like Lord of the Rings, I was crying during the books because I've been with those characters like my entire life, like since I was a kid watching the Lord of the Rings movies or reading The Hobbit when I was a kid. And Harry Potter, grew up with the movies, you know, they were coming out as I was growing up, and you know, reading the books now when something really happy happens and I'm crying and you know, all this kind of stuff. But she definitely did make me feel emotional for those characters, and in a way I don't feel like she should write any more to have to do with Babel. I don't think she's making it any sort of series or anything like that, but at the same time I'm like, ooh, I still want to read more about this. Like, I still kind of want to be in this and read more of her historical fantasy. And this is the first time I'm reading historical fantasy, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's also a historical fiction fantasy, and the historical fiction is definitely much heavier than the fantasy, but the fantasy elements, because it had to do with linguistics, I loved it so much. If you're not big onto linguistics, or if you're not big into like learning much about it, I would say this book may not be for you, because she does have long descriptions of like literally them sitting in class and the professors describing, you know, the relation or non-relation between words of different languages. And if that's not for you, that's fine, then it's not for you. Yeah, I think that she handled topics very well. And they're hard topics to handle well, and she did that thing. She did her thing, and I mean, her intelligence just shines through this entire book, and I don't know what more I can say other than that. I mean, 4.5 stars. It made me emotional, it made me angry. I loved it. And tonight I was going out to dinner with my husband and our friend, and I was like, you are not doing this to me. I had like 20 pages left, so I was like, you are not doing this to me. I need to finish this book before we go. So I don't know what else I can say other than that, other than I had a great time reading this captivating book by this incredibly intelligent woman, and I'm excited to read more from her, and I hope that y'all pick up this book and that you enjoy it. Let me know if you read it, what you thought about it, and what you thought about today's video. Alright, well, y'all have a great one. God bless.